Greetings and welcome to another Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team video. Today I'm going over the winners and losers from the latest December 2023 balanced data slate. But before getting into things, please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you think of today's video. Do you like it or not? And let me know what you think I've missed or haven't missed. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, and a affiliate link at Element Games, as well as a Patreon if you want to give me some more support. But yeah, let's get into the video. So what happened with the last data slate? Well, you can watch my video if you want. You know, it's also on the Warhammer community website for the balanced data slate. But effectively, only 2 teams got nerfed. It was mostly buffs for a wide variety of teams. Normally with balanced data slates, we see an even number of mix of nerfs and buffs. There was also no real data that was used for this balanced data slate. From what we could gather in the video Elliot talked about, most of it was based off of the World Championships of Warhammer. And as stats aren't widely covered at the moment, we can assume stats weren't used. So it's kind of different to most balanced data slates we've had. We've also had no updated FAQs and erratas currently. So as for example, we're expecting the Into the Dark forward deploy to change, because currently you can forward deploy while on engage, which allows for some alpha strike capabilities. But usually when there are erratas and FAQs, it does change things slightly, and we still haven't had those yet. We used to get them at the same time of balanced data slates, but recently we haven't. So we're still waiting for that. And also, we're gearing up for Season 3 with 2 new teams and a new kill zone. So while we're still looking at the current meta as it is, things may change once we start playing Season 3 more. As we can already say, or as we can already see, it looks like teams that ignore Obscuring will be very powerful, as well as teams with Fly. But that won't really kick in at the moment, and especially for the first month or 2 of 2024. But without all that out of the way, I will now cover all the winners and losers. So individual kill teams, I think, have done really well. Those who haven't done that well, as well as mentioning those that kind of haven't really changed. So first up, the biggest winners, Kasrkin. They are possibly one of the best kill teams in the game right now. The elite point change means their AP2 weapons have a minimum of a 94% chance to kill any operative on 10 wounds or less. So this is based on operatives that hit on 4s, and remember they have technically 4 AP2 weapons. So they have an overcharging plasma pistol from the leader, overcharging plasma gun, a melter gun, and the melter mine. The melter mine, you can argue, well, it hits on 2s anyways. That was always going to kill, but you can still use elite points to modify it. But what this effectively means is with the melter gun and the plasma guns, when they overcharge, as long as they get 1 hit, they have killed anyone with 10 wounds or less, unless they have invulnerable saves. And that kind of conversion is insane, because the elite point change means after you have modified 1 dice, you can discard a hit to modify another dice into a hit, but not a crit. So you can't make 2 crits, but you can make the first one a crit and then modify after discarding another dice by making that 3rd dice a hit. So the problem is when it stacks with AP1 guns, but mainly AP2 guns, because as I said, they just delete now. You're hoping the Kasrkin player rolls no hits and that doesn't use any CP to reroll, right? It's a crazy conversion. If this only applied to las guns, I think it would be fine, but because it applies to the special weapons, absolutely insane. It actually even gets worse with guns like the las volley, because if you roll a natural crit and a hit, and then you get 3 misses, you can make the first one into a crit, discard your 5th hit, 5th attack dice to make the 4th miss dice a hit. So you could get crit, hit. It's kind of insane, right? And the thing is, even elites who were always, kind of always usually dying to one of these special weapons, there was always a chance the Kasrkin would just fluff and that they would live. Now, no matter what, they're getting maimed. They may not get killed unless they roll 2 crits or something like that, or start off with a crit. It's effectively curtains for a lot of these elite teams. And the problem is, now elite teams, they are more likely to be maimed by every shot, which means it's easier for the Kasrkin to kill. Also ignore Obscuring for an operative, which is very powerful. Shooting teams that ignore Obscuring just naturally perform better, because one of the main weaknesses of Kasrkin was like using obscuring to stay safe. Now you can't really do that anymore. It makes staying away from them and shooting really hard. You have to be very careful with how you set up your operatives to not get shot. They have more equipment synergy because now they have the support grips working on all their guns, which is better for Into the Dark and when they're outnumbered. All their good matchups got slightly better. As I said, the problem into Elite isn't that they're now just killing elites. It's more that they are more reliably damaging elites. The bigger thing is all their bad matchups became better. So Kasrkin struggled into hordes, but now with this elite point change, they're automatically killing hordes, and also all their guns just become a lot better. So now it's more reliable that they're just getting 1-for-1 trades. It's very, very good. They still suffer into the big 12 plus operative teams, but not to the same extent anymore. I think the only ones they really worry about are Pathfinders, but mainly veteran Guardsmen and Blooded, just because both teams can flex up to 14 operatives, and it becomes almost a bit too hard to kill, but they still have a lot of blast action from like their grenade launcher and frag grenades. They are also an easy one box team. Like you only need one box of Kasrkin. They're a very easy team to get and play. You don't, the only reason you would buy a second box is to build a leader with a power weapon, maybe another trooper, and also a hotshot volley gun. Otherwise, just an insanely good team. The weirdest thing was the support grip and the change to ignore obscuring was perfect. That's all this kill team really needed. The elite point change feels like it was poorly thought through. Like it's just really bad when you go, oh, as long as I roll one hit, you're dead. Like a 94% chance to kill anything with 10 wounds or less is just not good. Like it's not fair to play against. But it suffers because elite points are a boring mechanic, and it's just frustrating how dice fixing mechanics keep getting pushed in GW games. It's a really bad mechanic, and the fact it's been buffed is very depressing. But there we go. Kasrkin, big winners, big winners. Like they were already doing well. Like after they got their 8 wound buff, going up to 8 wounds, and the knives from the Facadia, they were doing pretty well. They were averaging at least 50%, sometimes going up to 55. This is going to push them over the edge. It's quite worrying if you're not playing Kasrkin. Now we have Inquisitorial Agent. They got no nerfs. They still have absolute authority. While it doesn't work against stratagems that are 0 CP, and you can't use it against the same stratagem more than once, it is still incredibly powerful and locks out a lot of kill teams from the game. You now have access to buffed Exaction Squad and Kasrkin operatives, which importantly gives you access to ignore obscuring. So you can have an ignoring obscuring plasma cannon. Like not even just the plasma cannon, but it's just they have too many tools. They remain as one of the best, albeit more difficult 12 operative teams to play with an overly large toolbox. This kill team has a weird dilemma where the problem is the more you buff the other teams they can take, the stronger this kill team gets. They're always going to be 12 operatives, and the fact that they can also take 6 breaches is kind of crazy. But as I said, they now have improved Exaction Squad to take, and Kasrkin. Now, because you're more incentivized to take Kasrkin because you still get the double comms, but now you can give non-ignoring skewering to your key gunners. It's quite insane, crazy. They are harder to play than most teams, but the problem, I compare them to old Pathfinders. If you know how to play them, you will lock people out of the game because you have too many tools, especially as you can take 30 operatives. Pathfinders, they are definitely winners. Like, oh, I'm so happy. They are much better Into the Dark now, with drones being able to open doors. I like to imagine the drones smash, like they just keep smashing into the doors until they open, like Here's Johnny style. It's great. That's how I love how these drone open doors. It's just like, what's that banging sound? It's just a drone barges in, marker lights you, and then charges you. They're 12 activations, which is still really good. 12 activations is the upper limit. They can now take the recon drone for a single operative. Do not question, only accept the greater good. I was okay with drones being able to open doors. I think that's all Pathfinders needed. If I was a playtester and you asked me, John, should the recon drone be -1 operative? I would be like, no, that's crazy. But it's here. And did you know the recon drone is 12 wounds? It's no longer 4 defense. It's also 3-4 in combat, hits on 5s. I can't believe we got the gun drone for 1 operative. It's so crazy. The recon drone opens up so many plays for the kill team. Probably too many, but only time will tell. Remember, not only can the recon drone give the Pathfinders a free dash, it's got a 4-up save, it's got 12 wounds, it's got a 6 dice, 3-4 heavy hitting on 4 gun with ceaseless, and then it can also analyze. So you pick a visible enemy operative and a visible friendly operative. That friendly operative gets relentless against that target, and then you can optionally group activate with the operative. So you now give Pathfinders a free access to do 2-for-2 trades, where you do in a single activation, you have 2 operatives kill 2 operatives. Ridiculous. It's I can't believe we got this. And then with the overall meta change, potentially back to being on top of the meta, especially with the upcoming season 3. You know, as the more we move away from Into the Dark, the better Pathfinders get. And it's just, as I said, I am technically complaining about these Pathfinder buffs, but they're clearly winners. Like, I don't know what we did to get the recon drone for free, but I will be eternally grateful for at least the next 3 months, for as long as this lasts. I won't question it. I will just go, recon drone is life. You know, I used to be friends with the gun drone, but now recon drone is my best friend. Corsair Voidscarred. They are technically winners, but you'll see later. The reduced range on Outcast makes the team even better at alpha striking, an element the team already excelled at. One of the main ways, and basically the main way to play Corsairs at the moment, is to alpha strike, which is basically rush down the opponent, do as much damage turning point 1 and or 2 to just nuke them and then control the game. Because Outcast used to be, as long as you are not within red of a friendly operative, if you roll any crits, you can turn a miss into a hit. Now, as long as you're not within blue, which allows you to do more crazy combos, such as with the leader, as well as on Into the Dark, like, you know, when the leader group activates. Deadly Ambush makes the kill team even better at defending objectives / choke points, especially on Into the Dark. Because what it does, even if you're concealed, you spend a command point, someone moves within blue of you, or they finish a move, you can charge them. You switch to engage and charge them. And it's even better if it's your turn, because then you can just punish them and do other things. It's crazy on Into the Dark. They still kept the Rending Shredder, so they still have a good game into Hordes. It's not the best, but still good. And overall are now terrifying to play into on Into the Dark, which is a kill zone they already excelled at. Like, Into the Dark was great with light fingers because they, you know, were just moving and opening doors for free. Now they have more ways to protect doors, which was something they already excelled at, and they're just crazy at punishing you. A very dangerous kill team to play against, especially if you're an elite. Wyrmblade, they're winners. Cult Ambush is now far more reliable and usable over successive turning points, so you now can get more value out of it instead of just relying on slinking into darkness to switch back to conceal after activating. It's very, very good. Also, please play it as rules as intended, not rules as written. So I know rules as written, it technically says, as long as you are not visible to every operative, but technically Elliot did clearly explain it in the video. It says, as long as you're not visible to any operatives. So it's as long as you start from outside of visibility. The only problem is, like last Balanced Dataslate, we had the problem with Felgors, with their Frenzy on Death from shooting, and now we've had it again with Cult Ambush. Hopefully this just gets fixed soon. I know a lot of tournament organizers are playing it as the video, so rules as intended. So it's just as long as you're not visible to any operative, instead of as long as you're not visible to every operative, because that means Cult Ambush is just always on. The Talon is now an effective tool depending on the opponent, especially into elites, because now he can double strike. He still charges from conceal, so he's potentially doing anywhere from like 10 to even 12 damage, which is very useful into 12 wound elites and elites in general. It's just a very damaging, like, he's a cannon. He's a glass cannon, but the good thing is he can charge from conceal. And he's not an auto take, but he's now more encouraging to take, which is good. Heavy gunners are now super dangerous, can now come in from hiding and still shoot. Just super mobile overall because they have built-in suspense systems. So they can still shoot as long as they didn't move them more than red. I guess you kind of need an FAQ for how it interacts with hiding, because hiding doesn't actually say how far you move, you just count as moving, but I think it still synergizes with the heavy gunners and their ability to move. The big thing is the mining laser is now more likely to get its shortwave profile off. Not the mining laser, the seismic cannon, which is a really damaging profile, which you only really used if your opponent got too close by accident. It just makes your gunners highly mobile and a very dangerous threat. So even if your co-agents go down early, it's not completely game over because you still have some threat. They get more synergy with all their ploys. As I said, now Cult Ambush is more active and the heavy gunners are more mobile. You just get more synergy with what they want to do and play. They still worry about elites, but that's not so bad, as we'll get onto later. And they now just have super amazing turning point 1 pressure. It's just, they were already good at pressuring turning point 1, but they're even better. They're the only kill team at the moment that can deploy 2 operatives, turning point 1 from reserves, and it pushes them to 12 activations, turning point 1. So a big threat. Veteran Guardsmen, they're definitely winners, They got no nerfs ever since they've been released. Absolute chads. Clearly the most balanced kill team in the game. They still have 14 operatives with 12 activations. No one takes the airstrikes. Don't talk about the airstrikes. They have all the special weapons. Like, they have a melter, plasma, crack grenade, grenade launcher, leader with plasma pistol, and then the powerful demo mine, which still hits through walls, right? Doesn't need visibility, just have to place it in a visible spot, and it's unlimited. So they have so much AP1 threats, or AP2. They effectively now have no bad matchups, only even to good ones. Like, I believe pretty much all their matchups are now a 5-5 scale. So you look on a 5-5 scale, all their matchups are minimum 5-5, or they're 6-4 or 7-3 in the Veteran Guardsman favor. They're in a really good spot. Like, the spotter still works. Like, we were all expecting the spotter not to work if you're behind heavy, but the spotter just ignores all conceals unless you have a super conceal. It's just crazy. Loot is still almost an auto win for the kill team. They have a great faction tack up. Bad matchups are pushed out of the meta due to other buff kill teams like Kasrkin and Pathfinders, who, they're still okay matchups with Vet Guard, and they have a great matchup into Kasrkin. One of the few kill teams that can probably reliably beat Kasrkin because they're 14 operatives. They are technically as slightly more accurate because they have reroll 1s and they hit on 4s and they have too many threats, right? They have a lot of ways to pressure Kasrkin and outscore them without having to rely on engaging with the Kasrkin, which is very difficult for the Kasrkin to play in. But overall, Veteran Guardsmen are just huge winners by doing absolutely nothing, just staying exactly the same. They've become a huge winner. Now we go into losers. Chaos Cults were always going to be a big loser. On the top of the prior changes with the last Dataslate, so like the reduced ranges for their auras, picking how the banner works, that kind of thing, devotees have to kill to mutate instead of doing damage. This makes horde matchups a lot harder, as well as making more mutants more difficult. It's a huge change to the kill team. They now can't just rock up to Vet Guard and Blooded and go like, cool, well, any 7 wound kill team, I slap you, I'm now a devotee, I'm now a mutant. Really affects how this kill team plays. It makes horde matchups where healing no longer fully heals, even when mutating. So it doesn't matter when a devotee turns into a mutant, because it's 7 wounds to 7 wounds, although when you are an injured devotee, you don't fully heal. Still a big change. The biggest change is this healing buff, healing nerf, applies even when a mutant mutates into a torment, because you still roll to heal. You don't start on 13 wounds, you start on 7. Because it's D3 plus 3, if you have a 1 in 3 chance of starting on 13 wounds with your torment, you're more likely to start on 11 or 12 wounds. And it may not sound like much that a torment not starting on 13 wounds, starting on 12 or 11. I have played Cult a lot and played into them a lot. There's a lot of times where they live at the end of a turning point on 1 to 2 wounds. This change is huge. You lose the reliability of starting on 13 wound torments. You could go into turning point 2 with 2 11 wound torments. And even when your mutants mutate, a lot of mutants don't mutate while fully healed. They mutate while damaged. And if a mutant is on 4 wounds, they're coming back with a minimum 8, which isn't that much. So a huge change. The thing is, they are still 15 operatives, but with a lot less pressure and far more bad matchups. They're no longer the dominating game presence they were, which is good, but they're still a threat. You have to remember they are 15 operatives with 30 APL. They're not like Galapox, where Galapox only has about 22 APL for objectives. This kill team still has 30 APL. So you can't underestimate them, and cult players have to play a lot smarter. I've known a lot of players who have argued that they're no longer competitively viable because of how the healing works, which I think is needed for this kind of kill team. They're not horrible, they're just a lot harder to play, which is good. Now we have Kommandos, the other team that got nerfed. Sneaker Git is capped to once per game and cannot change order, effectively killing the Turning Point 1 Dynamite, which has existed since the start of the game. So that's good to see, personally. The Bomb Squig cannot get +1 APL, but can still get negative APL modifiers, which means the Bomb Squig is a lot harder to use and is no longer the free automatic pressure you had. Because what you did, you said the Dynamite down one flank and the Bomb Squig down the other, and you just corralled the opponent. Because remember, you could move, dash with the Bomb Squig, also shush dash, so you could effectively move 12 inches, you have a 2-inch radius to blow up, and you blow up. It's too much range, right? And they've effectively gotten rid of that. You have to play a lot smarter with the Bomb Squig, and you have to play a lot riskier, which is really good. However, Kommandos now have more command points to use and can still provide a lot of pressure by charging from conceal. So they're no longer going to be able to easily get 4-1, 4-2 on the primary turning point 1, but they can safely pressure up, because the biggest thing is they can charge from conceal. They have more CPs to use, like they can use a shush, so they can, well, you know, the auto retain if they have a conceal order. So if they're in cover with a conceal order, they auto retain 2 dice. Even if they're in the open with a conceal order, they retain a dice from shooting. So they're still quite good, and they haven't had their overall playstyle changed. They just can't alpha strike with forward deploys on open. With no FAQs to Into the Dark still, this kill team can still forward deploy a single operative and open a door on engage with Dynamite. So you can have effectively the knob with your Into the Dark forward deploy, move 6 inches, open a door, shush 3 inches, and then potentially Dynamite on Into the Dark turning point 1. Still incredibly powerful. They are effectively unchanged on Into the Dark, remaining a dominating kill zone for them, because they only had one operative to forward deploy on Into the Dark. The only thing they lose out on is the Bomb Squig, but the Bomb Squig's easier to keep alive on Into the Dark, so they haven't lost that much effectiveness. They may also be one of our few hopes versus the oncoming Kasrkin Storm, because they can technically survive a Kasrkin Alpha Strike with just a scratch, and they have enough tools just to punish, and also being 11 activations. So we might actually still see a lot of Kommandos, and maybe we need them to save us from the Kasrkin. But even though Kommandos have overall lost a lot, they still have a lot of good things going for them. Whereas Chaos Cult lost a lot and have not lost a lot of power, Kommandos have just lost their crazy Alpha Strike. They're still a powerful kill team, but no longer dominating. Then we have Elites. I'm sorry, Elite players, you're all losers. This hurts, because I actually wanted to main Legionary, but after playing games and seeing and reading the Dataslate more, this is not the Elite meta. So Elites have now become borderline unplayable competitively with this current meta, because Kasrkin, as I said, Kasrkin aren't reliably killing Elites. They're just reliably damaging Elites. But the problem is, it's not that Kasrkin have just gotten better. You're more likely to see more Kasrkin, which is just really bad. Because if a Kasrkin player is rolling hot, like, they just need 3 hits, and then they elite point the 4th hit and they've killed a Marine. Very hard to deal with. As I said, Kasrkin will be more popular. You'll see them at more events, and it's such a swingy matchup. As long as they just roll 3 hits, you're dead. And there's not much you can do around that, especially as they have 10 activations. Legionary now effectively have to run Tzeentch just to stay competitive. You could run Nurgle, but Nurgle will not save you against Pathfinders, Veteran Guardsmen, and Kasrkin. You need Tzeentch to stay alive against those kill teams, and even then, it's not great. Like, you're just trying to stay playable, which is very frustrating, because you're trying to rely on a 4-up invulnerable save, or your 3-up armor if they're not shooting you at AP guns. Intercession remain in a very tough spot as they keep their nerfs, while all their bad matchups got buffed. Like, I know they want apparently to keep Intercession as just this beginner team, but it's just a really weird set of changes we've seen, especially as Elites were still losing popularity. And then Phobos remain the main semi-viable Elite kill team, in my opinion, mainly due to their tricks with Vanguard and also how they interact with certain mission types and kill zones. Like, they're going to be crazy on Season 3 on Beta Decima. They are very, very good on Into the Dark, and Vanguard just does so much work for them, especially on loot. So that's what's keeping them really good. And if they roll hot, they can kind of double tap into hordes, especially Kasrkin, so it's not horrible, but they become the most playable out of all the Elites. There will be just too many 10 to 12 action teams to reliably deal with, right? You're going to see less Elites, which Elites oddly do well into, and because there's so much more AP guns in the meta, as I said, that's why you'd be running Tzeentch. But even then, Tzeentch is only a 4-up invuln, and if you don't roll hot on your 4-up invulns, you still die. It's just, Elites are in a very tough spot. I would have liked to see some buffs, or just not the extent of buffs we got to the other kill teams. Like, interestingly, you could now argue if Games Workshop wanted to sit in a meta where they're just only buffing kill teams, you could reverse the damage and negation changes for elites to make sure they're still viable in this meta. It was incredibly rough, which is depressing. And I don't say this with glee, and it's not like they're unplayable. You are just going to, well, I mean, it's borderline, right? If you're running into these large hordes consistently, you're going to get out-activated and shot up. And it's just depressing. As someone who has been playing Legionary a lot recently, I wanted to play them again. And after playing some practice games, I don't think it's viable at tournaments, which is just really depressing. And it's just, we haven't had a meta like this. A meta where a whole archetype of kill teams are just pushed out of the meta because all their bad matchups have been improved while they've had nothing. It's just very strange. Now we come on to 9 to 7 operative size kill teams who are all losers, I'm afraid. Technically, you could call them the Xenos crew. So this is effectively including all Eldari kill teams as well as Hierotek Circle. They are all countered heavily by Kasrkin, along with a likely resurgence of Pathfinders and veteran Guardsmen. It's just the activation limit. They just get outplayed, out-activated, and Kasrkin, as I said, they're just 4 of their operatives have a 94% chance to kill one of your operatives, and they already outnumber you. It's just not good. Hand of the Archon are now in full self-pain mode. They are very hard to deal with when you're playing with them against the above teams. You know, especially Kasrkin, they had a good matchup into Kasrkin, but the problem is now, as long as even an injured Kasrkin with a Torment Grenade, as long as they get a single 5-up hit, that gunner you tried to injure still just deletes you, and it's crazy. They're just in such a rough spot. Then, to be fair, Hand of the Archon do the best out of all these teams into hordes, but it's not great. It's just that Kasrkin matchup is so rough. And even Pathfinders now. Pathfinders being able to take the recon drone just punish Hand of the Archon so much. It's really frustrating. Corsairs, they have a chance on Into the Dark against most of these teams, but it's still incredibly tough. It's not an auto win. You're going to be relying on all these new tricks you've got and just hoping you roll hot. So it's not reliable, but they do well on Into the Dark. But you can only do so much when you're activated so heavily with such reliable damaging opponents, right? Because it's just, you don't have the durability of elites, but you have the reduced number of activations. You're trying to rely on 2-for-1 trades, but if you can't get 2-for-1 trades, you kind of just blow up. And then elites, if they do drop off in usage, when people play enough of the meta and go like, you know what, I'm not enjoying playing metas, I'm just going to play like elites, I'm just going to play horde teams, it means less good matchups overall, because these kind of kill teams really excel at punishing elites. And if there's not many elites in the meta, these guys aren't going to do as well. For Hierotek, you are just living on the temporal nanomine, right? I was expecting Hierotek Circle to maybe get a reduced range on the nanomine, but then all Cryptex can now just take all powers, and then you just have like some buffs with the Technomancer just to make, and just like some buffs to reanimation. Just staying the same is just really strange, considering they didn't even show up at the World Championships of Warhammer. So it's really unfortunate, and especially as Hierotek only 8 activations, I think they kind of auto-lose to Kasrkin, and Veteran Guardsmen and Pathfinders. Pathfinder's actually an okay matchup, but Vet Guard is super tough. Super tough. So I'm not sure how they will do in the current meta in terms of like having a positive win rate. And then Halfkin Salvagers, like Halfkin Salvager also will not like the oncoming meta. Their problem is they struggle doing reliable 2-for-1 trades. And the issue is Vet Guard is kind of a tough matchup, but Kasrkin can now outtrade you, and it's really tough. Pathfinders aren't too bad, but it's just Vet Guard and Kasrkin. So I don't think they're going to enjoy the current meta, and they have suffered the same problem where Halfkin just annihilate elites. But if they're not seeing elites, they're playing really tight games. And it's not like, I think Halfkin probably have the best chance out of all these kill teams because they have 10 activations, but still not great. Now we come on to the side grade kill teams. So these are kill teams that got some buffs, or maybe some nerfs, or no changes at all, but didn't really change. They're either in a good spot, still bad, or just kind of okay. So it's kind of a group term. Otherwise, I'd be having like too many slides, right? So Exaction Squad, your leader, he doesn't just carry the team. He is the foundation. He is the bedrock of the team. He is the founding father of the Exaction Squad kill team. If they had a Mount Rushmore for the Exaction Squad, you would just have 4 heads of the leader, right? His Nuncio Aquila is 0 AP. Exaction Order is 0 AP and goes up to 0 CP and goes up to 1 CP and now doesn't require line of sight. Just very good. He is amazing. The shield also got a nice change as a side grade where all profiles got combined. I would have preferred if the non-stun profile just got +1 to hit, and also we got some changes to batons and, you know, manacles. Otherwise, they haven't changed too much. They just got a quality of life improvement, so they're slightly better, but mainly just via the leader. It does boost them all more compared to other kill teams, but it's not a huge boost. Then we have Farstalker Kimband. They have another quality of life change with Call the Kill from the leader, as it doesn't need line of sight anymore, just anyone on the kill zone. It's like a slightly less powerful Exaction Squad buff. It doesn't help them massively. It just makes them more playable and Into the Dark and helps slightly with their bad matchups, but it's still not as powerful as the auto retain. But having the option of P1 or Ceaseless is just a nice flex. I would have liked more buffs for the crew, but at least they're now playable more so on Into the Dark. Hunterclade, they are now the true perfectly balanced kill team, taking the crown from Corsair Voidscarred. They got some more buffs for their imperatives, which slightly boosts their reliability nicely overall. I remember when Charles first saw Hunterclade and he was like, I prefer the compendium version because their rerolls just needed me to do 1 reroll. Like if I can reroll 1 dice, I don't need to have 2 failed hits or saves to get a reroll. Now they've got this nice slight change. They just become a little bit more reliable, which is all they needed. And it's even tempting Charles to pick them back up. So this is a nice quality of life change as well. It buffs them a little bit, but they still remain where they were. Then you've got Felgor Ravager. They became a tad more playable while retaining their huge strengths of effectively being 20 operatives for 10. And, you know, their frenzy while shooting was clarified. They can play objectives more, which is good. They're still a very good kill team. I think people just haven't properly played them. When I've seen players play Felgor Ravager really well, it's still a dominating kill team. I think people forget that they're just 20 operatives because you have to kill everyone twice. Really, really good. They've gotten a lot better, and I could see them becoming like the hidden gems of this balanced data slate. Then you've got Elucidian, Starstriders, and Galapox. If elites don't like this meta, then these 2 kill teams will love that result. They both kind of struggle into elites. Starstriders are more so than Galapox, but still it's noticeable for Galapox. With elites going, like presuming elites drop down in popularity even more, it's great for these kill teams. Like they don't change in power, they just go, oh, I actually enjoy playing into hordes, and a lot of my tools are excel into hordes, so this is great for them. Novitiates, they're still amazing and very likely broken on Into the Dark because they'll be able to do their Defenders of the Faith to go on guard and effectively win Into the Dark, which is a crazy change. Hopefully that gets changed in an FAQ or errata, while also being the only reliable counter into Pathfinders. You speak to any Pathfinder player, the only matchup we are truly terrified of is the Mirror and also Novitiates. Novitiates were tested against Pathfinders. They have all the tools to deal with Pathfinders. And overall, especially if elites go down as well, once again, they're going to like this meta. Nothing's changed for them. They're just still strong. And then Imperial Navy Breaches, you know, they still got no nerfs. They have an incredible alpha strike with Blitz and Close Assault, you know, auto-retaining a crit and a hit, and then auto-retaining a hit if they've got 3 or more hits within 3 inches. Just crazy. They don't like elites and prefer playing into horde teams, although they still need to worry about certain hordes, like Vet Guard and Blooded. Kasrkin is a weird one. I think they do slightly better into Kasrkin, but it's hard. You have to push into the Kasrkin to get the play, but it's still good, right? Especially if you're going to see a lot of 7 wound 5 up teams. Just having your shotguns just blitz people, crazy good. So for the overview, on reflection, while the latest balanced data slate was good, we may have slipped into a worse meta than the one we had prior. I think what's going to happen is people are going to sit down and read the balanced data slate more, play some more games, and I think after a month, people are going to realize we're probably in a worse meta. Like, I looked at the balanced data slate, and to be fair, I was expecting more nerfs. I was kind of disappointed we didn't, but I thought it was really good. It helped a lot of teams. Then I started playing, Tried playing some elite games, did not go well. Then tried playing some bad matchups into Kasrkin, like Kasrkin's bad matchups. Did not go well for those teams into Kasrkin. And it's just weird. We lost Colts and Kommandos, but did we go too far? Like, maybe this wasn't as good. I think the main downside is just how elites is locked out of the meta. Like, Kasrkin and Pathfinders are likely to dominate, along with Veteran Guardsmen and Inquisition. I think we might be in a meta where we have 4 S tier kill teams, just because they all number from 10 to 12 activations. Kasrkin are a lot less scared playing into hordes. They're just very good, right? It's a weird meta. Pathfinders and Kasrkin getting those extra buffs was too much, and Vet Guard just like how the meta's changed. And as I said, Inquisition, you buff teams they use, they get better, and they haven't gotten any nerfs. Elites, it's really bad playing as an elite player now, because you're more likely to run either into a 12 activation kill team or Kasrkin, and both are bad. As I said before, when you played into Kasrkin, they would get a bad roll and you would go, oh my gosh, I live. I finally live. They get a bad roll, they maim you. If they get lucky, they kill you. You are in an incredibly bad spot. And more Veteran Guardsmen and Inquisition makes it even worse. It's just really rough. As I said, like, you're going to need to bring down those 4 previously mentioned kill teams to give elites better, or even doing something crazy like buffing elites so they're back to their old power level. But I don't think we should go into a buffing arms race. Outside of elite teams, 10 or more activation kill teams are having a great time, right? Even crew, they haven't changed, but they're like, obviously they don't like playing into Kasrkin and hordes, but they're still okay. Like, the 10 activation and higher teams, the only one who is going to miss seeing elites drop off are Halfkin. Everyone else is actually going to have a great time. It'll be interesting to see what Season 3 brings. We still haven't seen the full rules. We haven't seen what the Scouts and Blades of Cain do. So it's going to be interesting to see how those affect the meta. As I said, the first month, like January, we're maybe just going to see mostly Into the Dark and Open, but we're going to see more Season 3 Beta Decima terrain, maybe like Open in Season 3. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. I could see Harlequins jumping up more, and maybe 1 or 2 of the other teams I've mentioned previously coming down. We're still waiting on new FAQs and erratas, right? So, as I said, the one thing we're mainly expecting is an update to forward deploy, so you have to start on Conceal instead of starting on Engage. But as I said, we can't predict what's going to happen in these FAQs and erratas, and they have a tendency to change how this game works. So even though they may not do nothing, we still have to keep in mind of that. And overall, the game is still fun to play. I think the only problem is it's going to be a more oppressive game. If you're playing an elite team, you have to be prepared you're on the back foot. You have to be prepared you're going to be playing really bad matchups. You have way more bad matchups than they're more likely to be seen. And especially if you run into good players who know how to properly play Kasrkin, Pathfinders, Veteran Guardsmen, and Inquisition, they're going to lock you out of the game. And it's going to be very unfun. That's why I find this meta quite concerning, because Pathfinders were easy to play and easy to oppress with, whereas the 4 previously mentioned kill teams, they can do just as much oppression or more, but they're harder to use. But I don't think being harder to use that kind of oppression justifies it being in the game, which is why I'm concerned. We'll wait and see. It's still early and I could be wrong. My practice games could be wrong. But as I said, after I sat down, read the balance data slate a bit more for a few more days, played some more games, I think the meta might be worse. I could be wrong, but we'll see. But that's pretty much it from me today. Please remember to like and subscribe as well as comment. Let me know what you thought of the balanced data slate and what do you think of my winners and losers overview. Are there any kill teams I missed? Anything you think I didn't cover or, what I was wrong about? I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. And remember, I've got a Discord you can check out in the episode description below, an affiliate at Element Games, and a Patreon if you want to give me some more support, and I'll quickly shout out my patrons. So for my adepts of the crit, I have Tom, Sam, Nikki Sticks, Nick, Mr. Meatwad, Kenzie, John Thomas, Dad of Goldens, Ben, and for my veterans of the crit, I have Samja. So thank you all for your support. It really means a lot to me. It helps support the channel. But yeah, I'll be back on Saturday with some special videos. This is 40 minutes, right? I did try and cut it down, but I think this is a better holistic view of the meta, right? I've covered effectively everything which I think are going to be big threats and big losers. And hopefully this is not more of like, oh, you should stop playing elites. I think it's very good that elite players are aware of what's going to be the next 3 months of Kill Team. Because I said I wanted to play Legionary, and I don't think I can play Legionary in this meta, at least competitively. And it's just really weird. I don't know why elites were hit, because it's an indirect hit to elites, because all their bad matchups got buffed, especially Kasrkin, and they're going to be more likely to be encountered at events. It's just weird. And say what you will about the last meta, elites were still playable. Elites were still had a chance. In this meta, unless you're excluding Kasrkin, you're just hoping the hordes roll badly, which is a really weird spot to be in. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I have a feeling after discussing with a lot of other players who have, have a lot of tournament experience and have played and have seen this balanced Dataslate as well as stewed over it, I think I like Pathfinders a lot. So no matter what happens when you play into Kasrkin or get shot down by Vet Guard or flanking Pathfinders, remember there technically is always a chance as long as you can roll a crit.